Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're watching this. It is the season of festive cheer, presents, mulled wine, mince pies, and the same old 15 to 20 songs that are played ad nauseum on every radio station, supermarket, and music channel. It is these, as well as some slightly less well-known ones, that are the subject of this video today. My 12 songs of Christmas. These are not in any particular order, so there isn't any number one spot specifically. So with all that out of the way, let's go.
Driving home for Christmas.
Okay, so we are off to an absolute flyer here with this classic, written and performed by Chris Rea, released in 1986. According to a couple of interviews with the Middlesbrough-born guitarist and singer, he wrote it several years prior, where he was desperate to get back up to his home in the northeast England town from the studio in London where he was at the time. According to another interview, he wrote it for Van Morrison, but he was simply not able to get it to him in time. So instead of a grumpy yet soulful Ulsterman on the mic, we have this version that we know and love today. The whole vibe of the song is just so jolly and happy and infectious, with the piano taking centre stage along with some occasional dreamy guitar parts. That combined with Chris's distinctive gravelly vocal is such a contrast. It just sounds like an everyday guy behind the wheel, stuck in traffic and observing all the other commuters in the same boat as him. Even after nearly 40 years later at this time, it has become a staple on Christmas radio and crucial to so many people's Christmas playlists around the world, including my own. I don't know anyone who doesn't like this song, quite frankly, and legend has it, he's still driving home for Christmas as we speak. Performed by Greg Lake, who was one part of the English prog rock legends Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and written by Peter Sinfield, who was a founding member of the equally iconic prog rock band King Crimson. The song was released in 1975 and reached number 2 in the charts. Emerson, Lake and Palmer, or ELP as I'll refer to them from now on, were known for their grandiose compositions, regularly inserting classical music into their songs or basing entire songs from classical music. The instrumental section of the song is based on the classical piece Troika, which was originally composed by the Russian composer Sergei Prokofiev. The lyrics for the song have been interpreted as anti-religious, but I would personally view it as anti-consumerist. The yearning for the magic and the wonder that we are all told of as children this time of year. These elements perfectly combine with a beautifully played 12-string guitar in drop D, and the rousing orchestral section and choir at the end marks a perfect crescendo to a perfect Christmas song. It's very easy to get caught up with all the stress that Christmas brings, and this song is very much the antithesis of this. The second song in this list, released by an English progressive rock legend, this time by the multi-instrumentalist Mike Oldfield, and it was also released in 1975. But this song would take number 4 in the charts of that year. The song itself originates from the Middle Ages and had been used by composers such as Bach and Liszt as the basis of some of their own compositions. In Oldfield's interpretation, a diverse array of musical instruments are used here, which is pretty much like everything else that he's ever recorded. This particular piece of music has the use of guitars, recorders, synthesizers, and a medieval clarinet-like instrument called a courtholt, which, any of them Mike Oldfield could do that, that's for sure. I've always loved Mike Oldfield's work, and Ommadawn, which was his third album, is one of my all-time favourites. So yes, maybe I'm a little bit biased as a result, but I enjoy this composition so much, and every instrument can be heard, which I love the most about this song. So next we have yet another Christmas song from 1975, and we have this banger. Christmas meets aliens in this stunning track by the British-Irish singer Chris de Burgh. It's a song unlike any other Christmas song that I can think of. None of the wholesome images of Christmas trees, decorations, family time, and all the other things you think of when someone says Christmas song to you. This is a very deep and philosophical song in contrast. In short, it's a retelling of the nativity scene, but the messenger is an alien who comes to visit and tell those present that this scene that they are witnessing will happen again in 2,000 years' time and mark a new era in humanity. So yeah, it's quite heavy subject matter when it's being played alongside Wham, Mariah Carey and Slade. But despite its more moody and artsy arrangement, it very much deserves to feature on our radios and music TV channels at this time of year, and thus earns a solid place on my list.
Last Christmas, I gave you my heart.
We are back to 1984 for This Christmas Cracker, a classic in every sense of the word. One of the 80s bands who had become synonymous with the decade, as well as the hilariously quintessentially 1980s music video. Performed by the English duet Wham, fronted by the brilliance of George Michael and Andrew Ridgeley, who was the other guy. So despite its popularity and deservedly marked as a classic, it never actually reached number one when it was released, and being kept at number 2 by another Christmas classic, which you may or may not see on this video. Yes, the song has definitely been overplayed, there's absolutely no doubt about that. So much so that the craze known as Whamageddon was born, where you can see how far you can go before you hear the song. That being said, it definitely has a certain charm about it, which I personally really like about it. Many would disagree and hate this song with a burning passion, but I'm not one of them, and I'm proud of that.
Feed the world.
So this was the song that kept Last Christmas by Wham off of top spot in 1984. This was the brainchild of Boomtown Rap's frontman and songwriter Bob Geldof and the Ultravox singer-songwriter Midge Ure. The song itself is a roll call of pretty much every classic 1980s singer you can think of, and arguably one of the greatest drummers of all time in Phil Collins, providing the restless rhythms. So we had the likes of Boy George, Paul Young, Simon Le Bon, Bono, and George Michael, of course, among many others who all contributed to this ambitious song. The goal with this song was to end poverty, with all of the proceeds of this song going to charity. Spoiler alert, poverty is unfortunately still alive and well. Some of the lyrics have since caused discomfort and, to the extremes, some offence to some, but there is such a thing as poetic license, so I'm personally not offended by any of it, quite frankly. Of course it rains there, rivers flow in the continent, and Africa is not a desolate wasteland, but the scenes being painted in the song are very real. Unfortunately, 40 years on, these images are still painfully real and true to life for millions of people around the world when you look at what's happening in Sudan at the moment. It would be for this cause, as well as probably some record labels wanting the medal of Christmas number 1, that it has been rebooted for the 20th and the 30th anniversaries, using the popular crop of artists at the time, as well as Bono being the mainstay, doing his iconic line. But they are not a patch on the original 1984 classic.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Performed timelessly by the swinging Welshman Shaking Stevens, reaching number 1 in 1985. Believe it or not, this could well have been the 3rd song in a row to have been released in 1984, but apparently the record label decided to postpone the release a year due to Live Aid. Probably say that this song is the most fun on the list. Never fails to get your hips moving and click your fingers, do a little jig. Very much performed in this distinctive 1950s kind of rock and roll style, of course with the added sleigh bells and a killer saxophone solo. So it's never one I skip or avoid listening to when it comes on.
Christmas time, don't let the bells end.
Performed by the British rock band The Darkness and released only a couple of months after their iconic debut album Permission to Land. We could not get enough of these guys in 2003. Known for their high-energy rock numbers filled with innuendo, in particular, I Believe in a Thing Called Love, which was a smash hit, and that song actually also happened to be the one that my wife and I would have our first dance to. We have references of bell ends and ring pieces regularly through this song, combined with all the typical Christmas song imagery that one can expect from a classic Christmas song. Despite its infectious energy, it would never actually reach number 1. This would actually peak at number 2, being held off by the rather sort of somber cover of the Tears for Fears classic Mad World, performed by Gary Jules. Bah humbug.
Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas.
So with that bah humbug, that leads perfectly to the opening lyric of the one-hit wonder from the American band The Waitresses, which was released in 1981. As someone who absolutely loves Christmas Day but hates the build-up as well as all the Christmas shopping, I can certainly sympathise with the character in this song. Set to a really funky arrangement with a brilliant foot-tapping bass line being the driving force, we go through a young woman's struggles with the season, trying her absolute hardest not to involve herself with all the festivities. However, that all goes to pot when she bumps into her crush at the supermarket, and in her own words, ends happily ever after. This is a great tune, really catchy, and a very relatable story. Thumbs up here.
You're an old slut on junk, and dead in the trip in that bed.
I can imagine that most of you watching this video were thinking I wasn't going to include this masterclass, performed by the Irish folk punk band The Pogues and the sultry yet feisty tones of Kirsty MacColl. The song has been a mainstay on radio and music channels this time of year since its release in 1987. The video itself would mark the 25th anniversary of Kirsty MacColl's untimely death. The song mostly follows two people, a man and a woman, and their journey from their first moments in love and being head over heels for one another to their inevitable descent to their current situation, which the introduction performed admirably by Shane MacGowan in The Drunk Tank, where people go who are really, really drunk to sober up. They are both addicts of some description, with Shane MacGowan's character being drunk all the time and Kirsty MacColl's character being referenced as a heroin addict. Feisty and colourful language is used in the second verse, including a certain offal dish, cut with tenderness, and vice versa with a backdrop of traditional Irish folk musical instruments and a beautiful luscious string arrangement. A timeless classic.
So here it is, Merry Christmas.
You've been slayed. There can be no Christmas playlist without arguably the quintessential Christmas song. Released in 1973, we have the glam rock icon's most well-known song, sung with the rasping vocals of Noddy Holder to a classic glam rock style arrangement. The song itself is actually very wholesome, family themed with all the important questions being pitched. Are you hanging up your stocking on your wall? Are you waiting for the family to arrive? Are you sure you've got the room to spare aside? Does your granny always tell you that the old songs are the best? The chorus itself is the epitome of an earworm. Everyone knows it, you've definitely heard it, and you can absolutely sing it word for word, no matter what age you are.
Mr. Hanky the Christmas Pooh.
So the song itself wasn't actually a single, so I was reluctant to put it in this list, but it has become a mainstay for my wife and I since we've been living together. This is an absolute masterpiece of singer-songwriting. The Mona Lisa of all songs ever written in the history of the known world. Everyone's favourite sentient sings to us about how he visits on Christmas Eve, brought to the airwaves originally in 1999. So since my wife and I have been together, this has been a regular rotation on our Christmas playlist, so hearing this song takes me back to spending Christmas with her. In fact, any of the songs from the Mr. Hanky's Christmas Classics album could have featured here. That being said, it will be the original, the GOAT, that takes the place on this list. So I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that the wife will insist on me playing this album in full at some point during the festive season, especially when it comes to wrapping the presents up. And there we have it. So those are my 12 songs of Christmas. Recorded, well, 7 days before Christmas Day. So apologies for the inconsistencies there. But this marks the end of my recordings for this year, so we will resume again in 2026. I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas and a very peaceful New Year. You take care, and stay safe.